Hello interwebs and welcome to S.P.L.U.S.H, the Human Revolution. Today we're going to be talking about a very important and very terrifying topic. The break in the American education system. I know, it's horrifying, right? Well, the main reason that the American education system is so broken is because it's so standardized. People are not taught how to think, they're taught how to get an A on a test. And while there's nothing wrong with acing a test, people who are taught, just what they need to know to get through the test and then forget it, they don't actually learn. They don't actually know how to think for themselves and do things that are important. Now, obviously, there are people who manage to slip through the cracks and actually be intelligent, but it's really hard for us because we end up getting ostracized by the school system because we don't follow their system. We follow our system and we get better results, and they don't like it. And that's really, really annoying. And the main reason this happens is because of the No Child Left Behind Act, which was an act that basically says no one is allowed to fail out of school. You can't give up on a kid, and that's fine. But what it essentially forced them to do is either improve their methods so that no one could fail, or lower their standards so that no one could fail. And guess what happened? They lowered their standards a lot. A lot, a lot. And so people who are intelligent don't get the treatment they deserve in order to learn and grow, and people who aren't don't get the help they need in order to learn and grow. They just kind of they just kind of stick everyone together and make them follow this set course. And America is not as bad about it as other countries, Japan, they have this thing where they completely crush all individuality, and yeah, I know, sounds fun, right? And cram school and whatnot, but it's still pretty bad here in America. And one of the biggest problems is math. Now, I know a lot of people who would hear this are like, "Oh, I hate math. So boring, blah, blah, blah." But if you actually understand math, it's the most fun subject there is because it's so versatile. You can do anything you want. I mean, you can add, subtract, divide, multiply, etc., but you can do it in ways that most people wouldn't think of. And it's interesting to kind of think about all the different ways you can do it. Oh, well, look at it this way: there are literally hundreds of different ways you can make change for a dollar. You can do 100 pennies. You can do 95 pennies in a nickel. You can do 90 pennies in a dime. You can do 4 quarters, 3 quarters, two dimes, and a nickel. You do 3 quarters, 25 pennies. You do 3 quarters and five nickels. There's tons of different options, and just thinking about all the different options kind of exercises your brain. It feels good to come up with a new solution to a problem. It feels good to have the right answer, and it feels really good to know that you did it in a way that no one else has thought of. But most math teachers won't let you do that. In fact, they'll give you negative points for doing it differently than they would because they want you to succeed on a standardized test. They don't care if you actually understand the material. It's their job to make sure that you can pass this stupid test, and that's the end of it. But see, the thing is, I am one of the I consider myself to be one of the people who's actually semi-intelligent. I would not consider myself to be a genius or anything like that, but I can think and I can do things that a lot of people around me for some reason can't. I don't know why. But when I go into a standardized test, I ace it in 30 minutes and end up sitting there for 2 hours waiting for everyone else to finish. But then all the people around me, a lot of them end up not even finishing in that time frame, and I, it baffles me because they're not thinking. They're just going through the motions, and the motions are not preparing them for what they need to do. The teachers think that they're preparing you for this test by making you redo your times tables over and over again, but you know what? I never learned my times tables. I just do it in my head. Whatever. It works. You know what? I never learned long division, but it's never been a problem because I don't need it. You can easily do the math a different way. And that's what's so great about it. I mean, everyone else, they got lectured into this little pigeonhole and they can't figure out how to work around it because they're stuck in the box. Me, I ignored my teacher and read a book, and now I'm an intelligent person. It's just so ridiculous that in order to be smart, you have to ignore some of your lecture because when it comes to lecture, it's not going to teach you anything. You're never going to learn if someone just sits there and talks to you about something. And they're not even talking directly to you, they're just talking and expecting you to listen because little kids listen to old people. Yeah, sure. It's just so incredible to me that anyone would believe that this is a good system. And I just cannot get behind it. I can't see how they expect this to work, where they just don't care. It's very aggravating to me that they do this, where they put people into boxes and they make them work in this small area, and then later on they wonder why everyone is so stupid. It's because you never let them learn when they were little. When you're young, like 4 or 5, or on up until the end of grade school, you should be exploring. You should be reading books. You should be walking around outside. You should be poking things with a stick. That's how you learn. You know, I mean, when I was in the first or second grade, I read every single Dr. Seuss book in the library. And when I ran out of those, I read every single, what was it, Junie B. Jones? Oh, God, those are silly. But, I picked up a book series and I read it and I finished it. And then I picked up the next series and I finished it. And, there's a lot of good books for kids. Uh, there's just so much you can do with the education system to make people actually learn. But you don't. They don't. They just want to get by, get the job done, and you can't look at it that way. You can't look at it as a quick thing that you can finish easily because it's not. It's a lifelong journey to learn. Learning is something that you never stop and you never really start. You learn. You exist. So you have to learn. And people that don't, well, it's really sad. I mean, I've literally had people tell me, ain't nobody ever learned nothing from books because they're stupid. Because they were never taught how to get information out of that. And I was never taught either, but you know what? I found the stories interesting. And so I figured it out. And everyone else can do the same thing. I mean, what 4-year-old doesn't like Dr. Seuss? That's where I started. And I mean, by the time I was in third grade, I was reading Charles Dickens. And every kid in America has the same potential. I'm not special. I'm not particularly good. I just didn't get squashed by the education system like a bunch of other kids do. And I know a lot of people who are in the same setup. So it is possible to succeed, and it can be done. So, Viva la Sploosh, everybody.